Okay, very excited for this. I don't know what to expect, honestly, but let's just open it. I want to be careful. Trying to make sure that you can see me unbox this. Okay, there we go. If you don't understand what this is yet, then I don't know what else to say. I'll let the product do the talking. This is gonna be so sick. I'm gonna try to open this without dropping anything. Okay, so it's broken down into little pieces. Okay, let's open the first one. Dude, I'm so excited. No way. Oh my days, dude. What? Just for reference, I grew up in like mid 2000s or whatever, and like one of my best memories as like a Star Wars fan was just having a lightsaber and just doing battles with my brother. Dude, what? Are you kidding me? It's the Lego Star Wars version. That is so sick. It's obviously got the little Star Wars logo on the button. That's so sick. Okay, that's the hilt. And then this is the saber itself. Bro, that sounded like a Star Wars sound in itself. So now we're just putting in little screws to basically secure it in place. Dude, it's heavy as well. All right, I think this needs to charge before I do anything. All right, should we give it a... Power on. I just turned it on. What? That's sick. What? Ooh, we got green. All right, it's too bright. Wait, let me turn this off. This is so sick. Like, if you're not impressed, then I don't know what else to say. I'm being a big nerd right now, but I don't care. So if it isn't clear already, I've partnered with Lightsabers, which obviously makes some pretty sick lightsabers. I'm gonna show you some really cool features that this lightsaber offers and also a discount code if you wanna pick one up yourself. But let's get into the main video first. That is all about Lego photography tips. From making your figures float to mastering cinematic shots. All these tips are bound to help you in your next Lego photography shoot. So let's get straight into it. So first off is a cinematic character stance. Now, posing your figure is probably one of the most important things when it comes to Lego photography and making it look cinematic. You have to utilize all the moving parts, basically. You have to utilize the arms, the legs, and also the head. You basically don't want to make this figure look stiff. I've been guilty of that a few times through these photos here, and it just doesn't give off like a real cinematic scene. But literally the slightest movement of, maybe a helmet tilt, having the arms out, or even just the adjustment of their legs as if they're like about to take a step makes a huge difference in Lego shots. When you start adjusting Lego figures, naturally it can be quite tough to balance these figures, so I don't really use blue tack, I just take a lot of patience. I'll sometimes spend literally 10 minutes setting up just the figures and they'll fall over and over again, but it is always worth it. So yeah, if you can balance them, then that is always the best way to go, or you can try using like Lego rods like these and then stick it into the ground. Even just the slightest adjustment, like these Batman photos, I had him set up on this rail. Yes, I used blue tack in this case because it was windy and I didn't want to try balancing because they would fall onto the street like 16 stories below. But even the slightest tilt in his stance made it look so awesome, like he's just, looking over the railing. Pose your characters in interesting and cinematic ways so they don't look really stiff and gross, basically. Just got to picture yourself as them and how you would be walking if you're one of these characters. Next, we move on to aperture and nailing focus. So on any camera, there is a minimum focus distance. Now this 28-70 has a minimum focus of 24 centimeters, which essentially means I can have something 24 centimeters away from the lens and it'll focus just fine. Anything closer than that, then it is impossible for the camera to nail focus. So I think it's a good thing to know how close you can get your figures or subject to your camera until it becomes impossible to focus, especially when you're shooting Lego figures as they're very small and it can be quite difficult to nail focus on such a small subject. So when I'm shooting photos, I usually keep my aperture above 3.5 for Lego photography, simply because my style of Lego photography is I like to keep the landscape and the background kind of recognizable still. And it also still gives it a nice creamy and cinematic look to it. The lowest I'll go is obviously f2, but that's usually when I'm getting really detailed shots of the characters. But you can also still get some pretty cool photos when you're shooting on f2 from like a far distance, and then that way you can still have, the background background still recognizable, but the closer you get with a lower aperture, the blurrier the background's going to be. So my rule of thumb is to shoot maybe 3.5. You can get the whole figure in focus, unless if you're shooting cars or multiple figures, then I would suggest a little bit higher, like f5.6. That way you can get more of the vehicle in focus or more of the characters, because they're not all going to be sitting on one like focus line. If they're, you know, in different spaces, then if you have a really low aperture like f2, it's only going to be able to have one figure in focus, and then the rest are going to be out of focus, kind of like this shot right here. Okay, now onto the saber. So I'm still figuring out how to use this because I've only just unboxed it, but man, the quality is insane. Hang on, let me turn it off. Like, isn't that so sick? So I've partnered with Lightsabers, and essentially they're a company that builds one-to-one replicas of the real lightsabers from both the movies and also, as you can see, Lego as well. You can get replicas of Anakin's lightsaber, Obi-Wan, Darth Vader, any character you can literally think of, and they've got an incredible range of helmets as well. And although this is the Lego version, I am shocked by the detail. Like, it feels heavy. It feels like a real lightsaber. Like, that's so sick. I'm gonna be playing with this all day. I'm sorry. Like, the weight and the durability of it is like incredible. They've got a whole range of different like cinematic modes. They've got force effects. They've got, you know, obviously you can change to any color you like. You got blaster effects. You got multicolors, like, you know, you got rainbow if you want, or you can switch it to like a broken saber. Like, it is so insane. And it has the iconic swishes and stabs and, you know, smashes as well. So yeah, when I was choosing a lightsaber, they mentioned to me that they've got the Lego version as well, so I obviously had to go for that one, and the detail was incredible. I mean, obviously there's not a whole lot of detail on the Lego version, but they've nailed it, and it's like proper metal and everything. So whether you're into the cinematic replicas or just, you know, the Lego versions like myself, you can literally find the perfect lightsaber for yourself. If you want to check them out and also support me at the same time, I'll leave a link to them in the description below. And if you use Brian Mosh at checkout, then you'll get a sweet little discount for something that's honestly pretty incredible. So now we move on to probably one of the most important things, and that is how I edit my photos. Now, so I use Lightroom for all of my editing, and I've got two really nice images here that kind of offer two different things. Now, the first thing is cropping. So I really like this BD1 image, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna first crop almost to like his knee guards, because I really wanna focus on the sky. Okay, so we're gonna have him kind of in the middle. That's a nice composition, okay? So now I want to bring up the shadows a little bit because I want the character to be, you know, seen a little bit more. By the way, this is shot at sunrise. So when you're shooting a sunrise, it's important to expose for the sky, and any subject matter is underexposed because you can bring back shadows very easily, but highlights, once it's blown out, it's pretty damn hard to bring it back. I've got a whole video on it if you want to check it out right up here. So that's the first thing I want to do. Next thing I want to do is just play around with the whites and just make sure the sky is looking nice, a little bit more exposure. And now we move on to the colors. So because the sunrise, you get those orange colors, I'm going to put a little bit more yellow into that. Then I'm going to go and play around with the blues. So I kind of, or mostly it's green. So we're going to play around, add a little bit of oranges in there. That's looking quite nice. Getting that sunrise vibe is exactly what we want. Now, I usually use presets for when I'm editing photos, but for the sake of this video, I'm just going to show you kind of like a step-by-step like process to it. Now, I want to add a little bit more red to BD1 because that's kind of like his iconic color. I'm going to change the eye back to a nice blue. That looks a little bit too much. So yeah, back to there. And then take down the luminance, which is basically the brightness of the color, a little bit further down. And then I want to make sure that BD1 is still white. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep BD1 white, up the shadows a lot more, contrast. I'm going to solely focus on BD1 here. So maybe take down the highlights a bit. Okay, cool. Now Lightroom has a really cool feature where I can now select the sky, basically just work on the sky as its own layer. And now I want to change it to a nice orange, add a little bit of contrast, see what we can do. So mostly it comes from experimentation and just kind of playing around with what looks nice, basically. Quite happy with that. And then what I like to do next is I like to use the denoise on this because you can just see it's quite noisy. So just scroll down, hit denoise, and then it's going to apply AI denoise to make it a little bit smooth. Now, I don't usually like to go over the top with, you know, the denoise, because then it does look AI. So I usually just a little bit. So maybe, you know, 20 is always quite good, because then you can still get some natural noise. It's just to clean it up a bit. And then there we go. That's just a nice, simple edit. Not too many color changes, it's just nice and simple. Now, moving on to Captain Rex. It's a little bit different, this image. Got some nice greens. I'll work on the general basics, which I'm gonna up the exposure a little bit. You can see that there's parts of it that are a little bit too dark, so that's where I like to bring out the shadows so then you can see it a little bit better. You can kind of look at this and be like, okay, we've got blue and green being the most dominant colors here. We wanna try and highlight both those things. So we just get the little, I don't know what this is called, but just the color thing. We wanna keep the colors quite the same. That's nice, that's quite nice. And then we go to the blues. And then we want to make sure those are nice and saturated and work on a little bit of contrast. And then to make this look nicer, we go to the browns, implement those. So it's just little color changes that make it look really nice. And then I want to make sure there's some nice texture in there. So sometimes I'll go to the texture and just, you know, add that. That will increase your noise a little bit, but I promise you it's worth it. And then there's kind of a bit of light up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a radial gradient. I'm going to create quite a big one here. So as if this is like the sunlight coming through. Rotate that a little bit. And then just add almost like a little lens, well, not a lens flare, but like a little bit more light so it looks nicer. So yeah, just a subtle change to this, but again, just really nice. You could do the majority of this on your phone, by the way. Like maybe not the radio exposure part, but like the little color changes and just like the texture and stuff like that. And you can still get some really promising images. So this is a basic rundown of how I edit my photos. I think the main thing is just making sure that your character, you can see all the unique printing on the figure, and make sure the colors are accurate. Because when I started Lego photography, I would change the colors a little bit too much. But now I've kind of got a better hold on it, if that makes sense. So next, we're on to the final tip, and that is how to make Lego float. Now, there are many different ways to do this. My typical way of doing it is just using maybe a Lego rod like this and stuffing it straight into the ground and then placing it underneath the character and then taking various shots. And then later on in Photoshop, I'll use generative AI to remove that. Now, I only use that simply because I want to free up time. I could do that with my own Photoshop skills, but for the sake of time, I just use AI to remove it. Now, there's another way you can do it without having to use AI, and that requires a tripod. Basically, you set up your characters and you set up your camera on a tripod. You set the timer to 2 seconds and put it to manual focus, and you focus on the characters. And then once you've taken a photo of that, you remove the characters and take a clean frame. So you've taken 2 images. And then later on in Photoshop, you use the clean frame to paint over those little rods, and then you get a beautiful image like this where it looks like it's floating. No generative AI, literally using the background and doing it, I guess, the most natural way. I only do it without a tripod simply because it's a lot, you know, faster, and I'd like to get these photos as soon as possible and all that. But if you have time, then you can do it that way. Another way is you can use a fishing line. I use this in my other basic Lego photography tips. There's multiple different ways where you can tie the fishing line around the character and then have him hovering and doing all sorts of really cool jumps and stuff. But if you have Photoshop, I highly recommend learning how to use it to remove, you know, rods and stuff like that, because you can get some really epic photos with characters floating. I mean, just look at all these different images. And another one, which is kind of unconventional and takes a lot of time, is using a fish tank. I've done this once where I'm just dropping various Lego figures into the water. And yeah, I guess that is another way to make them float. So I hope those tips were useful. Thank you so much again to Lightsaber for sponsoring this video. I'll leave them in the description below. Make sure to use my link. Make sure to use my discount code at checkout to help me. And yeah, I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.